June 1944. The most powerful invasion force in history is stuck in France, losing tanks by the dozen to hedgerows that shouldn't be killing anyone. Every $1 million solution from the Pentagon has failed, until a gas station mechanic from New Jersey welded Nazi garbage to the front of his tank, creating something so ridiculous his colonel threatened to court-martial him. 48 hours later, that trash tore a 30-mile hole in the German front and changed the war. Before we dive into how a pile of Nazi trash saved the entire Allied invasion, quick question: where in the world are you watching this from right now? Drop your city in the comments below. I read every single one, and I love seeing how far these forgotten stories of innovation and courage travel across the globe. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Now, let's get into the story. The hedgerows don't look like killers. From the air, Normandy resembles a patchwork quilt, gentle green fields divided by neat lines of vegetation. Pastoral, harmless. The intelligence briefings called them agricultural features. The pilots flying reconnaissance missions thought they were pretty. The tankers knew different. These aren't hedges, they're fortifications that have been growing for 2,000 years. The Romans started them, piling dirt and stone to mark property lines. 20 centuries of roots, packed earth, and thorny vegetation turned them into walls 15 feet thick at the base. The roots are petrified, hard as iron, dense as concrete. And they're everywhere. Every field in Normandy is a box, 80 yards by 80 yards, enclosed on all sides by these ancient earthworks. The bocage, the green maze, stretches from the coast to the interior. Thousands of miles of interlocking barriers that turn open countryside into a claustrophobic labyrinth. The Sherman tank weighs 30 tons. It has a 75 cannon and armor thick enough to stop most German rounds. It was built to race across open ground, to dominate with speed and firepower. But in the bocage, the Sherman is a coffin on treads. The problem is geometry. When the tank tries to climb a hedgerow, the nose tilts upward at a 45-degree angle. The hull rises. The belly, the weakest part of the tank where the armor is only an inch thick, becomes exposed. That's when they hit you. The Germans have turned the bocage into a hunting ground. They hide in the hedgerows with Panzerfausts, shoulder-fired anti-tank rockets. They wait, silent, patient. They've rehearsed this ambush 100 times. They hear the Sherman's engine grinding as it tries to climb. They hear the treads slipping on dirt and roots. They wait for the moment the tank bellies up, tilting like a dog begging. Then they fire. The Panzerfaust rocket travels at 150 feet per second. At close range, it punches through that thin underbelly armor like a knife through butter. The shaped charge creates a jet of molten copper that sprays through the crew compartment at temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees. The 5 men inside don't have time to scream. Sometimes the ammunition cooks off. The tank becomes a crematorium. Black smoke pours from the hatches. The smell of burning diesel mixes with something worse, a sweet, fatty stench that clings to the back of your throat. The crews that survive learn to recognize that smell from hundreds of yards away. They taste it in their nightmares. June 1944, 3 weeks after D-Day. The Allies have secured the beaches, but they're hemorrhaging tanks in the interior. Company after company grinds into the bocage and simply stops. The battle lines on the map haven't moved in days. The problem isn't German armor, it's German patience. Every hedgerow is a potential ambush site. Every field crossing is a kill zone. The Shermans can't maneuver, can't flank, can't advance without climbing those death traps. The infantry tries clearing the hedgerows first. They take 60% casualties. German machine gunners are dug into the earthworks with overlapping fields of fire. You can't see them until you're already dying. The engineers try blowing gaps with TNT. It works once. The explosion is loud enough to alert every German position within a mile. By the time the smoke clears, mortars are already falling. Some crews try reversing back down the hedgerow after realizing they're exposed. The Germans have learned to wait for that too. They aim for the engine compartment on the retreat. The tank stalls halfway down, stuck on the slope, burning. The veteran crews are dying first. The men who survived North Africa, Sicily, the landing, gone in a single ambush. You can't replace experience. A green crew takes 4 times as many casualties as a veteran crew, and the casualty rate is already unsustainable. General Omar Bradley stands in a command tent staring at casualty reports. The numbers don't make sense. The Allies have air superiority, naval support, more tanks, more men, more everything. But they're losing. The Bocage is eating the invasion force alive. At the current rate of advance, it will take 3 years to break out of Normandy. The German reinforcements are already moving. Panzer divisions from the Eastern Front, fresh troops from Germany. If the Allies can't move, they'll be ground down, pushed back to the beaches. The entire invasion, the biggest military operation in human history, will collapse. And no one knows how to stop it. The Sherman tanks sit idle in the fields, engines running, going nowhere. Their cannons are useless. Their armor is useless. 30 tons of American steel reduced to sitting ducks. Inside one of those tanks, a sergeant from New Jersey stares at the hedgerow in front of him. His hands are shaking, not from fear, from rage. There has to be a way through. The engineers arrive with confidence and slide rules. They measure the hedgerows, calculate load-bearing capacity, determine optimal explosive placement. They're Harvard men, MIT graduates. They speak in coefficients and thrust-to-weight ratios. They plant 50 pounds of TNT at the base of a hedgerow. The math says it should work. The explosion is magnificent. A column of dirt and debris shoots 40 feet into the air. Roots the size of telephone poles cartwheel through the smoke. The shockwave rattles teeth 3 fields away. When the dust settles, there's a gap, 10 feet wide, perfect. For exactly 90 seconds. Then the German mortars start falling. The engineers had forgotten that explosions work both ways. The flash is visible for miles. The sound carries across the entire sector. Every German artillery spotter within range now knows exactly where to aim. The mortars arrive in clusters. The ground erupts. 3 engineers don't make it back to cover. The gap in the hedgerow fills with bodies instead of tanks. Next attempt, mechanical saws. Giant circular blades mounted on the front of tanks, powered by the drive shaft. The theory is sound: if you can't blow through, cut through. The first saw hits the hedgerow at 15 miles per hour. The blade screams, sparks fly, the tank's engine roars. The blade hits a root and snaps. 24-inch hardened steel sheared clean off. The fragments ricochet into the hull, denting the armor. The driver's vision slit cracks. The tank lurches sideways, crashes into its own blade assembly. They try reinforced blades, tungsten carbide teeth, slower approach speeds. The blades last longer, sometimes 30 seconds before the roots win. The roots are petrified oak, compressed by centuries of growth. They're harder than the steel trying to cut them. Someone suggests rollers, massive cylinders mounted ahead of the tank, designed to flatten the hedgerow through sheer weight. The prototype weighs 4 tons. It makes the Sherman front-heavy. The center of gravity shifts forward. First field test, the tank tips nose down into a creek bed. The roller acts like an anchor. The crew has to abandon the tank before it floods. Recovery takes 18 hours and 3 other tanks. The ideas get desperate. Someone proposes explosive charges on springs, bounce the tank over the hedgerow. The physics are explained in a 16-page memorandum. It includes diagrams, trajectories, wind resistance calculations. No one builds it because no one wants to be inside a 30-ton projectile with 5 tons of explosives strapped underneath. Another engineer suggests flamethrowers, burn the hedgerows down, set Normandy on fire. Someone points out that burning hedgerows create smoke screens that benefit the defenders. Also, the roots won't burn, they're too dense, too wet. Every solution creates 2 new problems. Bradley's command tent, 400 hours. He hasn't slept in 3 days. The casualty reports are stacked 8 inches high. 12 tanks lost yesterday, 19 the day before, 47 crews dead or wounded in 72 hours. An intelligence officer places another report on his desk. German 2nd Panzer Division spotted moving toward the front. Estimated arrival, 6 days. When they arrive, the Allies won't just be stalled, they'll be pushed back. Bradley does the math in his head. Current advance rate, 200 yards per day. Distance to open terrain beyond the bocage, 18 miles. At this rate, it will take 4 months to break out, maybe longer. The Germans won't give them 4 months. Someone suggests waiting for better weather. Air support. Carpet bombing the entire bocage flat. Bradley stares at the map. 10,000 hedgerows, each one a fortress. You can't bomb them all, you can't burn them all, you can't blow them all. And every day they wait, more Germans arrive. The staff officers stand around the map table in silence. Harvard degrees, West Point training, years of tactical education. None of it matters, they're being beaten by agriculture. One colonel suggests retreating to the beaches, fortifying the coastal zone, trying again next year with better equipment. Bradley doesn't respond. He's staring at the map, at the tiny flags representing tank companies that no longer exist, at the red lines showing German positions that haven't moved. The tent flap opens. A sergeant enters, muddy boots, unshaven. He's holding something, twisted metal, rusted, covered in barnacles and sand. "Sir," the sergeant says, "permission to show you something ridiculous." Bradley looks up, sees the scrap metal, sees the sergeant's eyes. What the hell does he have to lose? Curtis G. Cullen is 29 years old and has grease under his fingernails that won't come out. Before the war, he ran a gas station in Cranford, New Jersey, changed oil, fixed transmissions, welded cracked engine blocks back together with equipment held together by rust and prayer. He never graduated college, never read an engineering textbook, never calculated a load-bearing coefficient in his life. He just understood how things broke and how to fix them with what you had. Cullen's tank crew calls him Wrench, not affectionate, annoyed. He's always tinkering, adjusting the track tension, modifying the ventilation system, jury-rigging solutions to problems that didn't exist until he pointed them out. His commanding officer wrote in his file, "Competent but unconventional, needs to follow procedure more strictly." Procedure got 12 tanks destroyed yesterday. Cullen stands at the edge of a field, staring at the hedgerow that killed Lieutenant Morrison's crew 6 hours ago. The Sherman is still there, nose up, belly exposed, burned black. The hatch is open. Nobody retrieved the bodies yet. Everyone is looking at the hedgerow, measuring it, calculating angles of approach, discussing how to climb it faster or climb it with more armor or climb it while laying suppressive fire. Cullen isn't looking at the climb. He's looking at the anchor point. The hedgerow isn't just dirt, it's a root system, dense, interconnected, strong enough to hold back 30 tons of steel. The problem isn't that the tank can't climb, it's that there's nothing to grip. The treads spin on loose dirt. The nose lifts. The weight shifts backward. But what if you didn't climb? What if you bit? The idea hits him like a static shock. Not elegant, not sophisticated, brutal, simple. He needs teeth. Cullen walks away from the field. His crew asks where he's going. He doesn't answer. He's moving on instinct now, following a half-formed thought that doesn't make sense yet but feels right. He walks 2 miles back toward Omaha Beach. The invasion's detritus is everywhere, abandoned equipment, shattered landing craft, supply crates stacked in the dunes, and scattered across the sand like the bones of a metal graveyard. Check hedgehogs. The Germans placed thousands of them. Steel anti-tank obstacles designed to gut landing craft. 6-foot-tall structures made from railroad rails welded into X-shapes. 3 tons of hardened steel. The Allies cleared them from the invasion path with explosives and bulldozers, then left them to rust. Trash. Cullen stares at a hedgehog half buried in the sand. The steel is pitted, barnacled. Some sections are bent from explosive blasts, but the core material is intact. Railroad-grade steel, high carbon content, strong enough to stop a tank. Strong enough to cut through roots. He sees it now, not the whole design, just the shape. Prongs, multiple prongs, welded to the front of a Sherman, angled downward. When the tank approaches the hedgerow, the prongs bite into the earth. They anchor. The tank doesn't climb, it pushes forward. The 400 horsepower engine drives those steel teeth through the root system like a plow through frozen soil. The hedgerow doesn't stop the tank. The hedgerow gets ripped apart. Cullen walks between the hedgehogs, mentally cataloging. This one's too damaged. That one's the right angle. He needs 4 prongs per tank, maybe 5, depends on weight distribution. A corporal from Graves Registration approaches. You need something, Sergeant. Cullen points at a hedgehog. I need that, and about 40 more like it. These are trash. We're supposed to bury them. Don't. Cullen is already doing the math. 40 hedgehogs. Each one yields maybe 6 usable prongs after cutting. That's 240 pieces, enough for 50 tanks if the design works. If you want trash, the corporal looks confused. Cullen grabs the hedgehog, 3 tons. He can't lift it, but he can tilt it, test the integrity. The welds are solid, German engineering, overbuilt, perfect. Get me a cutting torch, Cullen says, and find me every welder in the battalion who isn't dead. The corporal stares. Sir, I don't have authorization to. Then get authorization, or don't, I don't care. Cullen is already walking toward the next hedgehog. I need this steel in a field workshop by tomorrow morning, and I need a tank I can destroy if this doesn't work. Destroy. Cullen doesn't answer. He's not thinking about permission anymore. He's thinking about Lieutenant Morrison's crew burned alive because the tank exposed its belly. He's thinking about the 47 other crews that died the same way this week. He's thinking about teeth made from trash, and whether a gas station mechanic from New Jersey can outsmart 2,000 years of French agriculture and 6 months of German tactical planning. The sun sets. Cullen stands among the hedgehogs, covered in rust and salt. His hands are already bleeding from handling the sharp edges. He has 72 hours before the German reinforcements arrive. 72 hours to build something that might work or might get him court-martialed for destroying government property. A Sherman tank costs $50,000. A pile of Nazi scrap metal costs nothing. He knows which one he's betting on. The field workshop is a torn canvas tent and 3 acetylene torches that keep sputtering out. Cullen works by flashlight. 2 privates from the motor pool help, kids who knew how to weld before they knew how to shave. They cut the hedgehogs with torches that burn too hot, then too cold. The steel resists. Sparks shower across the mud. Each prong needs to be 4 feet long, angled at 30 degrees. The measurements are scratched in the dirt with a stick because nobody thought to bring a protractor to the invasion. They cut 12 prongs from the first hedgehog. 8 are too warped, 3 cracked during cutting, 1 is perfect. They need 20 prongs. It takes 9 hedgehogs to get them. The welding is worse. The Sherman's hull is rolled, homogeneous armor, hardened steel that doesn't want to bond with the softer railroad steel. The welds keep cracking. Cullen adjusts the torch mixture. Too much oxygen and the weld is brittle. Too much acetylene and it won't penetrate. By 300 hours, his hands are blistered through the gloves. 1 private passes out from the fumes. They drag him outside, prop him against a tree, keep working. The prongs go on the front glacis plate, 5 of them angled downward like tusks. They don't look engineered. They look bolted on by someone having a nervous breakdown. The welds are ugly, overlapped, reinforced with whatever scrap they could find. When the sun comes up, Cullen steps back and sees what they've built. The Sherman looks like it has teeth, metal teeth, jagged, crude. It looks like something a child would draw after a nightmare. It looks insane. Colonel Miltenberger arrives at 700. He's heard rumors. A sergeant is destroying a tank, building something unauthorized. He expects to see negligence, maybe sabotage. He sees the prototype and stops walking. What in the hell is that? Cullen's throat is raw from torch fumes. Solution to the hedgerow problem, sir. The colonel walks around the tank, touches one of the prongs. It's still warm from welding. You welded. What are these railroad spikes? Railroad rails, sir, from the German beach obstacles. You welded Nazi garbage to a 30-ton tank? It's not a question, it's an accusation. Yes, sir. The colonel looks at Cullen, at the blisters on his hands, at the two privates standing behind him barely conscious, at the Sherman with metal teeth. Sergeant, this looks like a piece of junk. Yes, sir. You've damaged government property. Yes, sir. And you think this abomination will do what exactly? Cullen's voice is steady. It'll bite into the hedgerow, anchor the tank, let the engine rip through instead of climbing over. The prongs transfer the force horizontally instead of vertically. The belly stays low, no exposure. The colonel is silent. He walks around the tank again, kicks one of the prongs, the weld holds. You have any idea what a Sherman costs? $50,000, sir. And you've just ruined one based on a theory you scratched in the dirt with a stick. Cullen doesn't respond. He's too tired to defend himself. The design either works or it doesn't. Words won't change steel. The colonel stares at the tank for 30 seconds that feel like 30 minutes. Then he looks at Cullen. You get one test. One. If this thing fails, you're facing a court-martial for destruction of military property, if it works. He doesn't finish the sentence. They both know what happens if it works. Field 7, the colonel says. The hedgerow that killed Morrison's crew, you're testing it there. 1400 hours, I'll be watching. He starts to walk away, then stops. Sergeant, that hedgerow has killed 4 tanks. If yours is the 5th, I'm charging you with criminal stupidity. Cullen watches him leave. His hands won't stop shaking, not from fear, from exhaustion. From the realization that in 6 hours, he'll either save the invasion or end his career. The privates are staring at him, waiting. Get some sleep, Cullen says. We test at 1400. What if it doesn't work? One of them asks. Cullen looks at the tank with teeth, at the ugly welds, at the Nazi steel that's supposed to save American lives. Then we die like Morrison, in a tank that doesn't climb. Field 7, 1400 hours. Morrison's burned-out Sherman is still there. Nobody moved it. The hedgerow behind it stands 15 feet tall, roots thick as a man's torso, untouched by 3 weeks of war. Cullen sits in the driver's seat. His hands are wrapped in gauze where the blisters broke. The steering levers are slick with blood seeping through the bandages. He can smell his own sweat mixed with diesel fuel and the metallic tang of fresh welds. The engine idles, 400 horsepower, the whole tank vibrates. Colonel Miltenberger stands 50 yards back. He's not alone. Someone tipped off division command. There are 6 officers watching. Cullen recognizes one of them, 2 stars on his helmet. General Omar Bradley. No pressure. The radio crackles. Whenever you're ready, Sergeant. Cullen's foot hovers over the accelerator. His throat tastes like copper. If the welds fail, the prongs will shear off and punch through the hull. If the angle is wrong, the tank will flip. If the prongs don't bite, he'll belly up just like Morrison. $50,000 tank, gas station mechanic, Nazi trash welded to the front. He presses the accelerator. The Sherman lurches forward, 20 miles per hour, 30. The hedgerow rushes toward him. He can see individual thorns, roots thick as cables breaking through the earthwork. The prongs hit first. The impact slams Cullen forward into the steering levers. His ribs crack against the metal. The tank doesn't stop. The prongs bite into the ancient root system and hold. The engine screams. The treads claw at the earth. And the hedgerow explodes. Not from fire, from force. 2,000 years of compacted roots and earth meet 400 horsepower and 5 steel teeth angled at 30 degrees. The roots don't bend. They snap. The sound is like bones breaking, sharp cracks that echo across the field. Dirt sprays everywhere. Chunks of root as thick as fence posts cartwheel through the air. The tank doesn't climb. It doesn't expose its belly. It pushes through like a fist through wet paper. Cullen is through the hedgerow in 8 seconds. He stops on the other side, kills the engine. His hands are shaking so hard he can't grip the levers. He tastes blood, bit his tongue on impact. The gauze on his hands is completely red now. He opens the hatch, climbs out, looks back. The hedgerow has a hole in it, 10 feet wide, ragged edges, roots dangling like severed arteries, and the prongs, all 5 of them, are still attached. Bent, scarred, but intact. The officers are running toward him, not walking, running. Bradley reaches him first. The general is 53 years old, and he's sprinting across a French field like a man half his age. His face is flushed. "Do that again." "Sir." "Do it again. I need to see it wasn't luck." Cullen climbs back into the tank. His ribs are screaming. He doesn't care. He fires up the engine, backs up 50 yards, finds another section of hedgerow. He hits it at 35 miles per hour. The result is the same. The prongs bite, the roots explode. The tank punches through without exposing its belly. When he climbs out the second time, Bradley is standing on top of the destroyed hedgerow, staring at the hole like it's the face of God. "How many can you build?" Cullen's ears are ringing. "Sir." "How many of these can you build? 10, 20. Depends on how much scrap steel we can find." Bradley turns to Miltenberger. "Get every welder in the division. Strip every beach obstacle from here to Utah Beach. I want 500 of these." 500? Miltenberger looks at the prototype, at the crude welds. "Sir, that's 500 in 7 days. General, we don't have the facilities. We don't have time." Bradley's voice cuts like a blade. "The German 2nd Panzer arrives in 6 days. If we're still stuck in this bocage when they get here, we lose, not just the battle, the war." He looks at Cullen, really looks at him, sees the blood-soaked gauze, the exhaustion, the blistered face. "What's your name, Sergeant?" "Cullen, sir. Curtis Cullen." "Well, Cullen, you just changed the war, but we need 499 more just like it. Can you do that?" Cullen thinks about the 12 failed prongs, the 9 wasted hedgehogs, the 36 hours of welding that nearly killed him to build one prototype. 499 more, 7 days, while Germans shoot at them. "Yes, sir." Bradley nods. "Good, because if you can't, we're all dead in a week." He walks away. The other officers follow. Cullen stands alone next to his tank with teeth, watching them disappear toward command. 7 days, 500 tanks, an entire invasion hanging on welds made by gas station mechanics. The radio crackles. It's Miltenberger. "Cullen, I need you back at base. We're organizing teams. Every metal worker, every mechanic, every kid who can hold a torch." "On my way, sir." Cullen climbs back into the Sherman. His ribs hurt so much he can barely breathe. His hands are useless. He can't feel his fingers anymore. But the prongs are still attached, and the hedgerow has a hole in it. He starts the engine. Behind him, the destroyed hedgerow smolders. Ahead of him, 7 days of hell. And somewhere beyond that, the German 2nd Panzer Division, rolling toward Normandy with tanks that can't be stopped. Unless 500 Shermans with teeth get there first. They call it Operation Rhino, top secret, code-named after the horned animal that charges through obstacles. The irony is that there's nothing secret about it. You can hear it from 3 miles away. 24 hours after Bradley's order, the beaches are full of welders. Not factory welders, not trained technicians. Farm kids from Iowa, mechanics from Detroit. Anyone who's ever held a torch gets handed one and pointed toward a pile of steel. The factories are canvas tents and open fields, acetylene tanks stacked in rows, generators running 24 hours a day, burning diesel faster than supply can deliver it. The noise is constant, metal screaming as torches cut through German obstacles, hammers on steel, the industrial roar of an army improvising. Cullen moves between stations. He hasn't slept in 40 hours. His ribs are taped. His hands are wrapped so thick with bandages he looks like he's wearing boxing gloves. He can't grip a torch anymore. He just supervises, corrects, shows kids half his age how to angle the cuts. Station 4 has a problem. The welds keep cracking. A private 18 years old maybe is near tears. He's ruined 6 prongs. "Too hot," Cullen says. His voice is raw. You're burning through, adjust the mixture, more acetylene. I don't know how. Figure it out or men die. Cullen moves to the next station before the kid can respond. No time for coddling, no time for practice runs. They're stripping the beaches. Every German obstacle from Omaha to Utah, thousands of tons of steel. Combat engineers blow them apart with satchel charges. Trucks haul the pieces inland. The steel arrives twisted, covered in sand and rust and barnacles. It doesn't matter, they cut it anyway, grind off the rust. Weld the pieces into prongs, 4 feet long, 30-degree angle, 19 prongs per tank they've upgraded from the prototype's 5, more teeth, better grip. The math is brutal, 500 tanks, 19 prongs each. 9,500 individual pieces that need to be cut, shaped, welded, and mounted in 7 days, while German artillery randomly shells the work areas. A mortar lands 200 yards from Station 7. The explosion kills 3 welders and destroys 40 finished prongs. They clear the bodies, salvage what steel they can, keep working. The secrecy is paranoid. Bradley has intelligence reports that German reconnaissance planes are photographing Allied positions daily. If the Germans realize what's happening, if they see 500 tanks being modified, they'll adapt. Mine the hedgerows. Position anti-tank guns at likely breakthrough points. Change the entire defensive strategy. So the work happens at night when possible. Under camouflage netting, tanks are modified one at a time and immediately moved to dispersed positions. The finished rhinos are scattered across 50 square miles of countryside. Nobody uses the word rhino on the radio. The devices are called Type A modifications in official communications, as if the Germans won't notice the steel tusks when they arrive. Day 3, they've finished 80 tanks, nowhere near the pace they need. Cullen watches a welder collapse from exhaustion. They drag him to a medical tent. Replace him with a cook who once worked in a body shop. The cook's first 3 welds fail, the 4th holds. By hour 6, he's as good as anyone else. This is the factory. Exhausted men with minimal training, working with salvaged enemy materials, building weapons that don't exist in any manual. Held together by desperation and the knowledge that failure means death. Day 5, 200 tanks complete. The pace is improving, but it's still not enough. They're running out of German obstacles. Engineers start cutting up destroyed Allied equipment. Burned out jeeps, wrecked landing craft, anything steel. Cullen stands in the center of the chaos at midnight. Torches blazing. Sparks raining down like fireflies, generators howling. Men moving like zombies between stations. An intelligence officer finds him. Hands him a dispatch. German 2nd Panzer Division, 48 hours out, maybe less. Cullen looks at the half-finished tanks scattered across the field, at the piles of steel waiting to be cut, at the welders who can barely stand. How many we got? 212 operational, another 90 in final assembly. 300 tanks out of 500. Is it enough? Cullen thinks about the bocage, about the thousands of hedgerows between here and open country, about how many tanks they've lost already. No. Then what do we do? Cullen looks at the officer, at the desperate hope in his face, at the assumption that the gas station mechanic from New Jersey has another miracle in his pocket. We work faster. He walks toward Station 12. Cullen stands in the center of the chaos at midnight, torches blazing, sparks raining down like fireflies, generators howling, men moving like zombies between stations. An intelligence officer finds him, hands him a dispatch. German 2nd Panzer Division, 48 hours out, maybe less. Cullen looks at the half-finished tanks scattered across the field, at the piles of steel waiting to be cut, at the welders who can barely stand. How many we got? 212 operational, another 90 in final assembly. 300 tanks out of 500. Is it enough? Cullen thinks about the bocage, about the thousands of hedgerows between here and open country, about how many tanks they've lost already. No. Then what do we do? Cullen looks at the officer, at the desperate hope in his face, at the assumption that the gas station mechanic from New Jersey has another miracle in his pocket. We work faster. He walks towards Station 12. A weld has failed. The prong fell off during mounting. They need to start over. 48 hours, 3,000 more prongs, and a German armored division rolling toward them with tanks that don't need teeth to kill. The torch ignites, the steel screams, the race continues. July 25, 1944, 9:38 hours. The carpet bombing starts first. 2,000 Allied aircraft turn the sky black. The ground shakes from explosions 5 miles away. German positions disappear under a curtain of fire. Then silence, smoke, dust settling. The Germans crawl out of their bunkers, ears bleeding, vision blurred, but alive. They've survived carpet bombing before. They know the routine. The planes leave. The infantry comes. The hedgerows funnel the Americans into kill zones. They reset their weapons, check ammunition, wait behind 2,000 years of earthworks that have never failed them. Then they hear the engines. Not the usual grinding approach, not the cautious advance. This is different, faster, aggressive, multiple engines, dozens of them. The first Rhino hits the hedgerow at 40 miles per hour. The German machine gunner in position 7 doesn't understand what he's seeing. The Sherman has something on its front. Metal prongs, like horns. They bite into the ancient roots and the entire hedgerow explodes toward him. Not over it, through it. Dirt, roots, 2,000 years of compressed earth erupting in his face. He tries to run. The tank is already on top of him. The treads don't slow down. 3 hedgerows away, another German squad hears the sound. Like trees snapping. Like the earth tearing open. They peer through their firing slits and see hedgerows, their impenetrable fortifications, disintegrating, tanks pouring through gaps that shouldn't exist. One German corporal screams for his Panzerfaust. He grabs it, aims at where the tank should belly up, where the weak underside should expose itself. The Sherman doesn't climb, it punches through horizontally, belly low, armor facing forward. His rocket hits the front glacis plate, the armor deflects it. The tank keeps coming. The prongs tear through his position like a plow through soil. He's buried alive in collapsing earthworks. By 1,000 hours, 60 Rhino tanks have breached the first defensive line. The Germans try to reposition their 88 anti-tank guns. Too slow. The guns are set for static targets climbing predictable routes. Now tanks are appearing from impossible directions. 388 crews are overrun before they can fire a shot. German radio traffic becomes frantic, panicked. They're coming through the hedges. How are they coming through the hedges? We need reinforcements at. The transmissions cut off. Tanks with steel teeth roll over communication positions. By 1100 hours, the Allies have advanced 3 miles. 3 miles, in 2 hours. It took them 3 weeks to advance that far before the Rhinos. The German defensive strategy collapses. Their entire tactical doctrine was built on the bocage. Channel the enemy, ambush from fortified positions, use the terrain, but the terrain is betraying them. The hedgerows aren't shields anymore, they're graves. A German platoon tries to fall back. They retreat to the next line of hedgerows, dig in, wait, the same hedgerows that protected them for weeks. The Rhinos arrive 20 minutes later. The roots explode, the earth erupts. The platoon is obliterated. Some Germans abandon their positions without firing a shot. They hear the sound of hedgerows being destroyed and they run. Veterans who held against everything are breaking, running through open fields, getting cut down by American machine guns. The psychological impact is worse than the tactical one. The Germans had been told the bocage was impenetrable. Their officers promised them. The hedgerows were ancient, tested by centuries. No tank could break through. Now tanks are breaking through everywhere. The impossible is happening. Their safest positions are death traps. By 1400 hours, American forces have penetrated 8 mil. 8 miles into German-held territory. 8 miles. The breakthrough everyone said couldn't happen is happening. Bradley stands in a command vehicle watching the radio reports flood in. Unit after unit reporting success. Hedgerows breached. Defensive lines overrun. Enemy retreating. An aide approaches. Sir, we've lost contact with 3rd Battalion. They've advanced so far they're out of radio range. Bradley stares at the map. At the blue pins representing American units pushed farther into France than anyone thought possible. Lost contact because they're advancing too fast. When's the last time we had that problem? The aide doesn't answer. Nobody's ever had that problem. Cullen sits in his Rhino near the town of Marigny. His tank is covered in dirt and torn roots. 3 of his prongs are bent. 1 is missing completely, sheared off during the 4th breakthrough. His crew is exhausted. They've been fighting for 6 hours straight. No breaks. Just hedgerow after hedgerow exploding in front of them. German positions appearing and disappearing in the chaos. The radio crackles. New orders: push forward, exploit the gap, don't stop. Cullen's driver looks at him. We're out of fuel in 30 minutes. Then we fight for 30 minutes. He checks the map. They've advanced 12 miles from their starting position. 12 miles through terrain that was supposed to take months. Behind them, hundreds of rhinos continue the charge, tearing through hedgerows, ripping apart German defenses, moving so fast the enemy can't organize a coherent response. Ahead, open country, roads, towns, the flat terrain where American armor can actually maneuver. Freedom, finally. But the radio crackles again, different voice, urgent. All units be advised. German 2nd Panzer Division confirmed in sector. Estimated strength, 200 tanks. They're moving to block the breakthrough. Cullen looks at his bent prongs, at his exhausted crew, at the open country ahead that's about to fill with German armor. They've broken through the bocage, but the real battle is just starting. August 3, 1944, 9 days after the breakthrough. The rhinos have torn a hole in the German front 30 miles wide. Entire divisions are retreating. The impenetrable bocage is behind them. American armor is racing across open French countryside at speeds that make the maps obsolete by the time they're printed. Military historians will later calculate that the Rhino shortened the European war by 3 to 6 months, saved tens of thousands of Allied lives, changed the trajectory of history. Curtis Cullen doesn't know this yet. He's too busy trying not to die. His tank is moving through a village called Villeboden. Population 300, most of them fled. The Germans left rearguard units, snipers, machine gun nests, hastily planted mines. The mines are the problem. The rhinos broke through hedgerows so fast the Germans didn't have time for coordinated defense. So they improvised. Teller mines buried in roads. Shoe mines hidden in rubble. S-mines, bouncing betties, rigged to detonate at waist height. Cullen's tank is 3rd in column. The lead Sherman clears the main road. The 2nd tank follows. Cullen's Rhino turns onto a side street to flank a suspected machine gun position. The explosion comes from underneath, not the front, not where the prongs are. A Teller mine, buried shallow, 10 pounds of TNT waiting for pressure. The blast punches through the belly armor, the Sherman's weakest point, the spot the Rhino was designed to protect by keeping the tank horizontal. But you can't armor against buried mines, not when you weigh 30 tons. The explosion lifts the tank 6 inches, the right tread shears off, the suspension collapses. Cullen is thrown forward into the controls, his head cracks against the periscope mount. Blood fills his left eye. The world tilts, smells like burning rubber and copper. His ears aren't working right, high-pitched whine drowning everything. His gunner is screaming. Cullen can't hear him, but he can see his mouth moving. See the panic. Fire, there's fire in the crew compartment. The driver is slumped forward, not moving. The loader is trying to open the hatch. It's jammed. The explosion bent the frame. Cullen's right leg isn't responding. He looks down. The armor plate from the floor has peeled upward. It's pinning his leg between jagged steel and the driver's seat. He can't feel anything below the knee. That's bad, that's very bad. He tries to pull free. The pain arrives like a freight train. White-hot, blinding, he tastes vomit. His vision narrows to a tunnel. The loader is hitting the hatch with a wrench. The metal screams but doesn't give. The fire is spreading, reaching the ammunition stored in the hull. If it reaches the shells, the whole tank becomes a bomb. Cullen grabs his gunner, shakes him, points at the emergency hatch, belly escape underneath the tank. The one nobody wants to use because you have to crawl under 30 tons of burning steel. The gunner understands. He drops through, disappears. The loader goes next. Then it's Cullen and the unconscious driver. Cullen tries to drag the driver backward. His leg won't move. He's trapped. The steel has his femur pinched. He can see bone fragments through the torn fabric of his pants. The fire is 2 feet away. The ammunition will cook off in seconds. He makes a choice. He leaves the driver, reaches down, grabs his combat knife. The blade is 8 inches of carbon steel. He places it against his own leg above the trapped section. He can't cut through bone. He's not strong enough, not trapped in a burning tank with seconds left. So he doesn't cut. He twists, dislocates, rips. The pain makes him pass out for 3 seconds. When consciousness returns, he's lying in the belly hatch. His leg is still in the tank. The rest of him is underneath it. Hands grab him, drag him clear. He sees sky, smoke, the faces of his gunner and loader. The tank explodes. The ammunition goes. Secondary explosions rip through the hull. The turret lifts off and crashes 20 feet away. Pieces of steel rain down. One fragment embeds in the ground 6 inches from Cullen's head. The loader is trying to stop the bleeding. Using his shirt, his hands, anything, there's too much blood. It's pumping out in spurts, arterial. Cullen's vision is fading, gray at the edges. He can hear voices, but they're distant, underwater. A medic arrives. Morphine, tourniquet, pressure bandages. The medic is talking, but Cullen can't understand the words. He's lifted onto a stretcher, loaded into an ambulance. The vehicle bounces over rubble. Every impact is a spike of agony through his shattered leg. His war is over. He knows this. You don't lose a leg and go back to fighting. 3 weeks ago, he was welding trash to a tank. Now he's being evacuated to a field hospital where a surgeon will finish what the mine started. The ambulance hits a pothole. Cullen passes out. He wakes up 2 days later in England. Clean sheets, antiseptic smell. His right leg ends at the knee, wrapped in bandages that are already soaking through. A nurse tells him he's lucky. The driver didn't make it. Neither did 16 other men in his battalion who hit mines during the advance. A week later, an officer visits. Tells Cullen he's being awarded the Legion of Merit for exceptionally meritorious conduct in the performance of outstanding services. The citation doesn't mention the rhino by name. Classified, but everyone knows. The officer asks if Cullen wants to patent the design, make money from it. The army will license it. There's talk of manufacturing them for the Pacific Theater. Cullen stares at his missing leg, at the phantom pain that screams from a limb that isn't there anymore. No royalties, he says. I didn't build it for money. Then why? Cullen thinks about Morrison's burned crew. About the 47 men who died in hedgerows before the rhino existed. About the hundreds of men still alive because tanks with teeth let them advance. I built it so we could move. The officer nods, leaves, the door closes. Cullen lies in the hospital bed. His leg is gone, his war is over. But somewhere in France, rhino tanks are still tearing through German positions, still saving lives, still pushing toward Berlin. The gas station mechanic from New Jersey closed his eyes. Outside, the sound of aircraft heading toward the continent. Inside, the smell of antiseptic and the ghost pain of a leg that no longer exists. He built teeth for tanks. The teeth worked, men lived. That's enough. The engineers from MIT had 6 months and unlimited funding. They built prototypes in climate-controlled labs, ran computer simulations, tested metallurgical compositions, calculated stress tolerances to 3 decimal places. Every solution failed in the field. Curtis Cullen had 36 hours and a pile of Nazi beach obstacles. He worked in the mud with borrowed tools and torches that kept sputtering out. He didn't calculate anything. He just understood what needed to happen. His solution worked. Why? Because the man welding the steel had watched his friends burn alive in tanks that couldn't move forward. Because he'd tasted the fear of being trapped in a metal coffin while someone aimed a rocket at your exposed belly. Because he didn't see the hedgerows as an engineering problem. He saw them as the thing that was killing him. The engineers in the lab were solving an abstract puzzle. Cullen was solving survival. There's a difference. The Rhino wasn't elegant. It was ugly, crude welds, repurposed scrap. It violated every design principle the Army taught. But it worked because it was built by someone who understood the problem at ground level, literally. Someone who'd driven a Sherman through bocage country and felt the tank tilt upward and known in that moment that he was about to die. The multi-million-dollar research programs failed because they were solving the wrong problem. They were trying to make tanks climb better. Cullen understood you shouldn't climb at all. You should bite. Innovation doesn't come from laboratories. It comes from desperation. Cullen is back in New Jersey, running the same gas station he ran before the war. He walks with a prosthetic leg. Sometimes kids ask about it. He tells them he was in an accident, doesn't elaborate. A historian visits, wants to interview him about the Rhino, about how it changed the war, about how military textbooks now cite his design as a case study in field innovation. Cullen doesn't want to talk about it. He changed oil instead, fixed a carburetor. The historian left disappointed. Cullen never wrote a book, never gave speeches, never claimed credit beyond what was official. The Legion of Merit sits in a drawer somewhere. He doesn't display it. Because every time someone calls him a hero, he thinks about the driver who burned alive in his tank. About the 16 other men who hit mines during the breakthrough. About Morrison's crew and the 47 others who died before the Rhino existed. He saved hundreds of lives, but he couldn't save them all. That's what haunts him, not the leg, the math. Somewhere in France there's a field with a burned-out Sherman half buried in earth. The Rhino prongs are still attached, bent, scorched, but intact. Rust has claimed them now. Vines grow through the treads. Nobody remembers which field. Nobody marked it. The war moved on. The tank stayed. The next time you face a problem that looks impossible, remember this. The most powerful army in history was stopped by hedgerows. The solution didn't come from generals or scientists or billion-dollar programs. It came from a gas station mechanic who looked at a pile of garbage and saw salvation. Sometimes the only thing standing between you and victory is a pile of trash and the guts to weld it together. Sometimes the impossible is just the thing nobody's desperate enough to try yet. Curtis Cullen tried. Men lived because of it, and that's the only equation that ever mattered. The hedgerows are still there in Normandy. Tourists drive past them every day, not knowing they're looking at the walls that nearly stopped D-Day. Some of the hedgerows still have scars, gaps that never healed, places where roots were torn apart by steel teeth 80 years ago. The trash that saved the world is gone now, scrapped, melted down, recycled into peacetime steel. But the idea remains, the lesson that desperation teaches better than any classroom. That innovation isn't about having the best tools. It's about refusing to accept that the problem is unsolvable. Curtis Cullen refused, and the world kept turning because of it. If you believe that real innovation comes from desperation, not laboratories, that one person with guts and a welding torch can change the course of history, then hit that like button and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe now for more untold stories of the soldiers who refused to accept defeat and improvised their way to victory. Also check out the 2 videos showing on the screen right now, specially crafted for you.